Good day, everyone. Eric Olsen from Helps Law Firm for Seniors and Disabled Persons here today on December 3rd, 2025. Good to have you here. Trust you can hear me okay. My name's Eric, been attorney now for 46 years. And what Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. And our first mission is to protect seniors from debt collector harassment. We do that under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. That law provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors can no longer call or send demand letters anymore. They have to communicate with the attorney, and that's what Helps does, is we represent seniors who owe debt in order to stop collectors. Now, they find out about us, they call us on the phone, we go over their situation, they can roll over the phone. Sometimes they'll call us 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times before they decide to enroll. We don't turn anyone away. The cost is absolutely minimal. What you're going to hear today is stuff you're not going to hear in other places. There's almost a concerted effort by debt collectors and creditors when it comes to seniors to not let them know that their income is safe and protected, and they don't necessarily have to pay debt. If you're struggling with debt and you're having to go without your basic needs, you can choose to stop paying the credit card debt or the other debt as well. If you have any questions, put them in the chat feature. I'm glad to have you here today, and we'll answer your questions as we go. Now, I have things that people have written in or talked about. So one person contacted us and they said, what about when one spouse is working and the other is retired? Does the marriage negate the protection of the retired person? The answer is no. No, if we have a lot of clients or a lot of people that call us that maybe the debt is just the husband's debt or the wife's debt, and the other spouse isn't liable on the debt. So maybe one of the spouses enrolls and helps, the other one doesn't need to. The other one can preserve their credit. If you're married, your credit is separate. You don't have credit together as a husband and wife. Okay, so if you're married and your spouse, the debt is in his or her name, and he or she enrolls and helps and doesn't pay the debt, and you're not on that debt, it shouldn't affect your credit. Okay, so and their income's protected. So Rico asks, is the helps rate set by income or amount of work you're initially presented with? No, it's not not the amount of work. We have a kind of a sliding scale based on your income. The most a person would pay to helps would be $40 for 24 months, then $20 for 24 months, or $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months, or $20 for 24 months, and then $10 for 24 months. So it's based on your income, and that's your household income generally. It's a guideline. It can go down from there on occasion. We don't turn anyone away. Probably 1 out of 7 or 1 out of 6 or 7 of our clients get our help for free. And then it's designed that the payments are over with in 48 months. But you're still our client. Now, why do the payments go on? Why? It's not a one-time thing. Well, because when you enroll in helps, you're our client ongoing. So if you ever have a question or concern, you can always call us. And at the beginning, we're going to send out cease and desist letters to the creditors you owe money to. But these debt collectors or creditors may sell the account to a different debt collector, and you may get a new notice 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road from a new debt collector. And if and when that happens, you get that information to us, and we're going to send a new cease and desist letter out to that new debt collector. And then you may get sued down the line. Don't need to worry about that. If you get sued, you're going to contact us, or if you're sued at the beginning, you're going to get us the lawsuit information. We usually just need the first 3 or 4 pages of the lawsuit, name and address of the attorney and the account number, case number. And then we're going to reach out to that attorney, send them a letter, let him know that your income is protected, you're not going to pay the debt, and we also remind them of the protected nature of your bank account. Um, if you've been listening to me, you understand that we talk a lot about how in 2012, a law was passed, a rule put in effect that tells banks that if they get a writ of garnishment, they're to examine the bank account, their bank account. And if money came into that bank account from a federal source such as Social Security, then they take the monthly amount that you get from the federal source like Social Security and they times it times two. And they're to automatically protect that sum of money in that account, even if there's money in that account that came from another source. So that means, for example, if you got $1,500 in Social Security each month, 2 times 1,500 would be 3,000. That amount is protected automatically. So, when one of our clients is sued, and he could be sued, not going to have to go to court. We're going to call and explain to you why you don't need to go to court and why you're going to be okay. And we're going to remind you of the protected nature of your bank account. So you're going to be fine. But no, I know you're not complaining. I like to be able to, we have nothing to hide, as far as the fees are concerned. It's kind of nice, with helps, you can stop paying your other debt. The other thing about our fees is we don't need any forms up front to enroll in helps. People enroll in helps over the phone. Okay. And then when you enroll, we click a button, we keep you on the phone, and you're going to get an email that says welcome to helps. And that details our representation, and you're going to be on the line when you get that. And it gives you instructions how to get us the creditors or collectors you don't want to hear from. You're going to text them, fax them, email them to us, or mail them to us. So and then your payment won't begin until 30 to 60 days in the future, depending on when you get your Social Security. Okay. So, for example, if you got your Social Security on the second Wednesday, and a person enrolled today's the 3rd, their payment wouldn't begin till like January 14th. But if they got paid on the 3rd Wednesday, payment wouldn't begin until January 21st. The 21st would always be after the 3rd Wednesday, no matter where it falls. Okay? So Ms. H says, tax season is coming up for us seniors that work and file taxes. Can a creditor and collection try and get your income tax money without a judgment first from the IRS? Generally, it's not possible for a creditor that gets a judgment to be able to garnish your tax refund from the IRS. Okay, you can't do it. About the only exception is if you get a state tax refund. For example, in Michigan, it's possible for a judgment creditor to file a writ of garnishment with the Michigan Department of Revenue, and they would get a refund. Now, if you happen to be in a state where they could attach a state refund, you can easily solve that problem by adjusting your withholdings so you're not going to get a refund from the state. You can do the same thing with the IRS too. If you're going to get a refund, there's no reason for the IRS to be holding your money. You can get it now. If you're just a single person, it's completely illegal for you to claim more than one on your exemption, on your tax forms. You can claim the amount, so they're not holding any money out, okay? Or they're holding just enough to pay your taxes, and so you wouldn't worry about a refund. You get it now instead of a year and a half from now when you file the tax returns. Got it? Do certain states, if I live in a certain state, do I get sued more in that state than another state? I don't think there's any statistics on that. I kind of doubt it. Okay. No, seems to be no rhyme or reason. Well, give an example. Like in Texas, they can't garnish your wages. So if someone sued you in Texas and you had a job and they can't garnish you, okay? So you'd think maybe in Texas, a creditor might be less likely to sue someone. Well, I haven't noticed that. We get a lot of clients that live in Texas that get sued. I think a lot of creditors and debt collectors count on the fact that a senior or a person that owes debt, and I work with seniors, might not understand the law and understand their rights. And they're not obligated to tell you your rights or the law. A debt collector who calls you on the phone, and if your income is Social Security and a pension, it's protected, can't be taken from you. They don't have to tell you that. They just want you to pay the debt. Okay. So don't worry about it. Mhm. The other thing too, I want you to know right off from the beginning, if you ever do have a question, whether you're a client or a prospective client, don't hesitate to call us. We'll always talk to you. We have some people that call us for many times before they decide to enroll in helps. We're happy to talk to you and tell you what your rights are. So, rental rebates. You're probably from Michigan, right, Judy? Michigan has a program, and maybe another state does, but I think Michigan is the one I'm most familiar with. If you rent and the state's going to refund you some money attributable to property taxes, even though you didn't pay property, you didn't own the property. They're saying you rented, your rent contributed to property taxes. Therefore, they have a program in effect where you either file a tax return or another form, and you can get a refund of up to like $1,200 to $1,400. Well, the problem in Michigan is if you get this refund, a debt collector who sues you gets a judgment, they could garnish the Michigan Department of Revenue and they would get the refund. And so in those instances, we'll tell people, if you're married, just to have file the refund in the spouse's name that doesn't have the judgment. You technically could file a bankruptcy and wipe out the debt. Bankruptcy is not cheap, but you could do that. But that's about the only state where we run into a problem with this a state refund being taken by creditors. Okay, Minnesota. I think they allow that in Minnesota too. I don't hear about it as much as Minnesota. I sent a letter one time. I've said this before. I contacted the Detroit Free Press, which is the main newspaper from Michigan. Then one time we sent a letter to, I think, all the legislators in Michigan from HELPS, tell them about the problem with this law that they had, that they were helping the poor people, the poor seniors out by giving them this refund with one hand, but with the other hand, they were taking it away from them by letting the creditors garnish it. Never heard back from anyone. Maybe as HELPS gets bigger, we'll be able to lobby and be able to do something about that law. In Pennsylvania, can a bill collector come to my door? But they can come to your door in any state. You don't necessarily need to open it. But I wouldn't worry about it. Okay. Let's see here. This person contacts us from Georgia, and they say, I need to know if my income is protected. I draw Social Security each month, and I also am a participant in something through Medicaid, a structured family program through Medicaid. I'm a caregiver for a family member, and I receive a weekly tax-free check. If the income is protected, I would like to use your services as I'm going nonstop paying my debt, which is all unsecured. It's about $42,000. It depends on state law, and I've not seen a person that receives a check for taking care of someone from the government, um, that where that check's been allowed to be garnished. I guess the only way it could be a problem is if you deposit in your bank account and then someone were to garnish your bank account. Um, but generally, it shouldn't be an issue. You know, if the state law allowed that money to be garnished, they'd be defeating their purpose. They're going to ask a family member to stop working to take care of another family member, for example, and they're going to pay them to do that. And the state's going to save money by doing that. Um, and then if the state said, well, you can take that money from them, then the person, they couldn't work anymore. And the state would be saddled with the having to care for that person that needs care. So for that reason, my experience is almost every case I'm aware of, the state will protect that money. It will not allow it to be garnished, the money you get from taking care of someone in your family like that. Okay. So, person contacts us from California and they're saying, I'm 77 years old. I'm very far behind on my credit card debt and different loan payments. I was told you may be able to help me. Yeah, that's what we can do. Uh, the name of our law firm is Helps. And what does that stand for? Help eliminate legal problems for seniors. And that's what we do. If you have a question, you can always call and talk to us. Uh, we have attorneys and paralegals on hand that will go over your situation. We'll ask you some basic questions. And if you decide you need our help, we can enroll you over the phone immediately if you want to be. And then you give us the creditors you owe money to. We're going to send them a cease and desist letter. And these creditors are going to leave you alone. Okay? Okay. Eric, some years ago, a credit union sent a big man to my door. I called and told them never do that again. They never did it again. Um, yeah, okay. Credit unions, they're generally a little bit more active in collecting than other type of collectors. Okay? Other lenders. And they might do something like that. That wouldn't surprise me. Okay? So Larry says, I signed up for Helps last month. I'm in Texas. If I receive a refund check from an insurance company or even a gift from a child and go over 2 times my amount, how much time do I have to bring it down? We don't need to worry about that unless someone had sued you and gotten a judgment. Okay. If you haven't been sued and there's no judgment, then it doesn't matter how much you have in your account. And then, but if you have been sued and you want to be careful about it, and if they do have a judgment, then you'd want to pull it out, you know, when it gets there as soon as you can. Um, see, a garnishment on a bank is kind of like a one. It's an instantaneous one-time thing in almost every state. So if they file a writ of garnishment on your bank gets the garnishment like it. Let's say on today's what, Wednesday. Let's say it get at 10 a.m. today. and there's a department of the bank that opens up the mail, and they say, oh, there's a writ of garnishment. And they type a button in, and they look at your account at 10 a.m. And if the amount in there in your account at that time is less than twice the amount of your monthly Social Security, then they kind of rip up that garnishment and throw it away. They send a letter to the person who garnished you and let them know, hey, all this money is protected. Okay, garnishment's over with. It's been handled by the bank. So let's say this afternoon you deposit or a check comes in and it's now over twice the amount of your monthly benefit. It's not going to be a problem because they've already garnished you. That's already been processed by the bank. So they would have to hit at the exact right time. But it's always safer to be safe than sorry, right? Okay, David asked, and it's a good question. If you're not behind on any debt and need to stop paying the cards, right? Okay. Besides ruining my credit, how long till they may sue for the amount owed? Well, let's talk about both two questions. Ruining my credit. We do have a program that helps called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. If your credit goes bad, you can rebuild it. Your credit is based on your recent credit history. And if you've been part of HELPS for at least 90 days, you can enroll in that program with Phil Tyrone. In fact, I'm going to talk to him on Friday. I think we're going to do a video with his program. And I need to have him on here again. But we have videos where Phil talks about seven steps to a 720 credit score. Your credit is actually based on your recent credit history. So if you have old debt that you don't pay, you can actually build your credit back up without paying that old debt over a year and a half to 2 years. Okay? Now, how long do you have before they're going to sue? Well, they may never sue. I used to give a percentage on how often they would sue, but then some of the attorneys that helped scolded me because some people were being sued more than the percentage I said. So I don't give a percentage anymore. But the percentage I gave was pretty low. And I still stand by it, but I'm not going to repeat it. But even if you do get sued, you don't need to worry because your income's protected, right? So how long if they were going to sue? Gosh, usually, 6 months would be a minimum. A lot of times it's a year and a half, 2 years, sometimes 3 or 4 years. Okay. But then it doesn't mean that you're going to be sued. Obviously, the older the debt is, probably the less likely they were going to sue. Okay. Person contacts us and from Kentucky, and they say disability is our only income. I have credit card debt and one unsecured loan I can't afford to pay. I can't afford to pay any of them any longer due to medical supplies and a doctor appointment copays and having to travel out of state. Uh, Thank you for the help you give seniors who are both 66 years old. Well, your disability is going to be protected under state law. If it's Social Security disability, it's a form of Social Security. It's protected twice the amount. And if it's other disability, it'll be protected under state law. Okay? So you don't need to worry about this debt. Remember, if you have any questions, you can always call us. Press the like button. Okay? And also subscribe to our channel. So this person contacts us from Missouri. Don't hear this very often, but it does happen. Our oldest daughter took my wife's credit cards and ran up $18,000. on it 3 or 4 years ago, and they are suing her for it. We need help. Well, you don't need to worry about it. If your income is Social Security or a pension, it's protected. If they get a judgment, they can't do anything to your wife. Well, let's say you're buying a home and they sued and they got a judgment. Well, technically, a judgment could be a lien on the home, but if you own it jointly with your spouse, and if the wife, they got a judgment against the wife, and if the wife passes away before the husband, then the home will automatically go to the husband and the judgment debt goes away, the lien goes away. But they're not going to take your home. It's going to be fine. And your daughter made a mistake, but technically it's not going to have, shouldn't have that big of an effect on you. Okay. Okay, let's see here what I got. Some other stuff here. So this person contacts us, or this may have been a question on one of our YouTube videos. They say they have described their medical condition. They're getting Social Security disability, and they also get short-term disability from my job. And they ask, is short-term disability protected? It's based on state law, but I'm about as close to 100% positive that it'd be protected as I could be. I don't think I've ever seen an instance where a state doesn't protect disability income from creditors taking it. If you think about it, that's one of the basic things they would do. If someone's disabled and they need that money to live, it just wouldn't make sense for the state to allow a creditor to get at it. Therefore, the person couldn't live or take care of their needs. So yeah, the state law is going to protect that. So they also asked, they said, I sent them a cease and desist letter myself. That's what this person said. But they didn't respond back to it. Instead, they just sent me the same bill again. Okay, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, that's the law that helps operates under. It's a federal law. It's passed in 1978. And one of the provisions, it says that if you send what's called a cease and desist letter to a debt collector, then the debt collector can no longer call or send you demand letters anymore. They have to leave you alone. However, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act doesn't apply to an original creditor, okay? So in this case, if you send it to a cease and desist letter directly to the credit card company, they could still send you a bill. Now, when people enroll in helps, we still send cease and desist letters out to original creditors. And it's our experience is that the original creditor, they're going to stop calling you, but they may still send you this statement each month, okay? They're not breaking the law by doing that. Now, there are a few states that where they do take the protections of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and provides if you send a cease and desist letter out to an original creditor, they can no longer contact you. Okay, here we go. So I saw this reply recently to one of our videos, and the person says, for U.S. student loan debt through the government, they certainly can garnish your Social Security through the Treasury Offset Program at a maximum amount of 15% of your monthly check. And I responded back to that person on the comment, and I told him the fact that the Department of Education suspended offsets of Social Security last June. They were going to start it up in May, and then 30 days later, they suspended it. And I posted the link where it was suspended. So what does that mean? Well, first off, if you have a student loan, they haven't been garnishing 15% of Social Security for a student loan since about 2018. Okay. Helps was involved in a lawsuit that put a stop to that by the government. And then that lawsuit was eventually dismissed a couple of years ago. But even then, the government wasn't active on trying to collect money from persons out of their Social Security for student loans. And they were going to start it up again in May, but then they announced 30 days later they weren't going to do it. Now they may start up doing it again, but they'll probably give notice. And if they were to do that, a lot of lower income or seniors could qualify for what's called income-based repayment plan, where you pay according to what your income is. And for a lot of seniors, that might be $0 per month. So if you owe a student loan, why don't we worried about it? Yeah, I don't think there's any talk for them to start garnishing senior Social Security to pay student loans. I don't think the government wants to do that. Okay. Now they may go after younger people, but I think they want to kind of leave the seniors alone. Okay, this person contacts us. They say, we've been paying on our home for 5 years. After 11 years, we had to have a car. I have 2 cards that won't work with me. 2 others have set me up on a much smaller payment plans. And we get 5 to 6 calls per day. I don't answer the phone because there's no point since they won't work with me. Our only income is Social Security and a small VA pension, or VA check. So what do we need to do to stop the calls? There's no way we can make the catch-up payments they want, and they add interest and late fees every month. Well, your only income is Social Security and a VA benefit. And if you were getting Social Security and a pension and creditors were calling you, what helps does is we represent you as your attorney, so these collectors have to call us and not you. I already talked to a creditor this morning. I noticed the phones were going crazy, and I picked up one of the lines, and it was a creditor, and I actually recognized his voice because I talked to him before. And he represents a collection agency, and I forget the name of it, but before I talked to him, he goes through this whole list. Do you represent this person, that person? And I was prepared to him go through a list, but he only had one name to give me. And I told him, yeah, we do represent the person. He said, thanks. So they're just verifying that we represent this person, and then they're not going to bother them anymore. Okay? Okay, here's this person. This is what they tell us. Some of these, the first time I'm reading these, I post these, I paste these, and then I read them. I don't usually read them ahead of time. Okay, so this guy says, this video can't be true. I don't know what video he was looking at, but one of our videos. He says, I received Social Security and disability into my direct deposit account. a debt collection agency garnished my account of over $1,100 through a court order because I transferred my money out of the direct deposit checking account into my savings account. The collection agency argued that my Social Security was no longer protected by federal law when I transferred the money into my savings account. Well, they were right. It isn't. Not automatically protected. My key bank agreed and allowed the money to be taken by the collection agency by court order. This was back in 2017. Well, okay. The rule is, once again, is that twice the amount of your federal benefit is deposited automatically in the account into which Social Security is deposited. If you take it out and put it into a savings account, so when the bank gets rid of garnishment, they can examine the savings account and they don't know where the money came from. It came from another bank account, but they're not required to determine that that money originated from Social Security. However, if that were to happen to you, we would tell you to file a challenge of garnishment or claim of exemption with the court, and then you could tell the judge, hey, this shows how this money that was in my savings account came from my checking account. The money in my checking account was my Social Security. And you know what? Judge is going to order that money get released to you because it can be traced back to protected funds. But in this case, the guy didn't do anything. The bank told him, no, we can do this. And he just probably gave up at that point. Okay. Here's one I had fun with. I get once in a while people worry about this. And the guy says this is on a video. What about bank failures? He says, is our money protected when the bank holding it fails? Well, not too many banks are failing nowadays. Anyway, what I explained to him is no, if a bank goes under, there's a insurance coverage for the bank. Almost all banks have subscribed to Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC. In fact, you'll probably see it on a little sticker on the bank door, or it'll be on their website. And I'm not aware of any bank that's worth its salt that doesn't have FDI insurance. FDI insurance. It insures $250,000, $250,000 in your deposits. So you have less than this in your account. You only need to worry if our government were to collapse. And the reason the guy, he was worried, he said, well, this is what he goes on. He says, so I said, yes. So yes, the money is protected if the bank fails. Then he comes back, or someone else comes back, and they say, I've read that the FDIC is almost bankrupt and is incapable of paying if banks go down. Isn't this why we taxpayers were hoodwinked into bailing out someone or other? Okay. What was my response? I did respond to this. And I said, I kind of think that the federal government is going to stand behind the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation in the event there was a problem. Yeah, there may not be enough money insurance there to cover a bank failure, but if it were to happen, the government's going to step in and protect it. So I wouldn't really. And the last thing I said, there's always someone proclaiming doom. You could always proclaim doom, but if the government goes under, if it fails, then we're going to have lots of problems. But I think that's the last thing that is going to happen. Okay, not saying it wouldn't happen, but I don't stay awake worrying about it at night. Okay, all of us have too much invested in our system to see that there's a failure. Okay. Okay. I think I've got all the comments caught up. Person says, I need to talk to you. I just had a death in my family. Yeah, you can call and ask for me or any of the attorneys that helps. Okay, Kat? Doesn't necessarily need to be me. I'm sure I'll be able to answer your question. So this person contacts us and they say, I have 2 credit cards and a loan from Ally and a loan from Dividend Finance that have all been charged off and gone to collections. I've been struggling making payments for the last year, trying to keep them out of collections, but I have failed. My husband and I receive Social Security and I receive a pension from New York State. Not a lot, but it helps pay for a healthcare premium. I just received the first correspondence from the collection agency regarding the credit cards. I requested validation of the debt. It's been very stressful and I hope that you can help. I don't have any extra money to pay these companies. Thank you very much. So they contacted us back in October. And they contacted us. I went to the website and requested the information packet. We have an information packet we send to people, but frankly, you can just get on our website and learn a lot more than what we send you what you could be sent in the mail. I would like to sign up for the program so that you can send a letter to the collection agencies. Should I call or wait for the mail packet to arrive? Well, we called them. That was just a couple days ago, looks like. Just, she called in. We completed the intake. We read the paragraphs, quoted the fees, and enrolled her. And the attorneys that did this intake often says that. She said, very sweet lady. They have one bank checking account where all the income is directly deposited. She also has an account where she sells things here and there. She's going to close that account. In other words, they're going to just operate out of the account to which Social Security is deposited. They have one vehicle with a hefty payment, but they want to keep it. Yeah, if you have a car payment, you want to keep it, you can keep the car. But if you later decide you can't afford it, you could always stop making the payment and let it go back. And if you end up owing any money, you get it to help. Send that to helps. We're going to send a letter and they're going to leave you alone. They have a home equity line of credit on their home, but the payment is small. Apparently, they also have a little piece of property, a mobile home in Florida that isn't worth a whole lot on a little bit of land. So they live in one state. I'm not sure what state it is. Where does it really matter? Did I say it? Forget about it. Let's say it's New York. I don't think it is, but let's say it is. So they got their residences in New York, but they own a little mobile home and a little piece of land in Florida that apparently is free and clear. So if they get sued in New York, is New York going to be able to do anything about the property in Florida? Highly unlikely. How would they even find out about it? I mean, you can think of a possible way for them to get at the property in Florida, but I'm like I said, I'm 74. I've been doing this a long time, 30, 40,000 bankruptcies. Creditors usually don't find out about those things where they don't try to attack assets that are out of state. And if they were, there's things that could be done. So we also talked to her about looking into the possibility of doing a reverse mortgage on the home where they live in the state where they're at. We don't sell reverse mortgages, but sometimes we tell people about them. And for some people, they can be a real answer to prayer. Not for everyone, for some people. Um, is there a limit to how many judgments one can get? No. I mean, no. Um, Remind me of something I've told people before that are worried about judgments. If your income, Social Security, pension, disability is protected income, you could have 1,000 judgments against you for $10 million, for $100 million. No one can take any of it. You don't need to worry about how many judgments. Okay? Who is LexisNexis and why do they have information? Well, the only thing I know about LexisNexis is that they were kind of a law publishing company to publish legal books, or maybe also maybe internet websites and stuff like that. And I'm not sure what information they might have to you about you. They might have branched out to different other areas to get business. Okay. So this person contacts us from, I don't know, but I'll read it. I have a lawsuit filed against me in a certain county court. My wife still works and will work until the end of November, but her income is already being garnished by the state of Nebraska for back taxes. Well, um, uh, she may still get one or two checks in December. They didn't go through the bank. They filed directly with my wife's employer, which they could. Uh, he owes some money to some collection agency. He's a disabled veteran, and all his income is federal retirement or Social Security. As, as I understand from watching Senior Living, it is in my name, not hers. Apparently, this credit card debt. Okay. Um, can she have her last two checks taken from this? Taken like the state of Nebraska has already taken 1,000 out of each of her paychecks already because of the harassment of creditors. Really, no one can take. Okay, a state revenue department can file a writ of garnishment on your without having to file a lawsuit. But a regular creditor would have to have it sue you and get a judgment to be able to garnish your wages. Okay. Because of the harassment of creditors, I no longer answer my phone, and I do accept texts. Easiest way to get a hold of me is by email, this guy says. He talks about some other financial problems they've got going. He says, I've not heard of helps, but I wish I had when I retired on disability 15 years ago, or even at 62 when I got Social Security. I'm now 74 and will be 75 next month. Um, and then we talk about how we call him back. And he goes on talked to us several times. Some people call us 4, 5, 6 times before they decide to enroll. Apparently, he finally got a lawsuit against him. He says, um, I have other overdue bills, but I cannot make an accurate list. I would have to send them to you as I get reminders. Yeah. Yeah, we tell people when they enroll, give us the creditors you owe money to. You don't need to give them all at once. In other words, give us what you know about. And if you have another one that pops out of the woodwork 6 months or a month or 2 months or a week later, give it to us. We represent you ongoing. And we're going to send a new cease and desist letter out to that new collector that you just found out about it. He goes on and he says, I guess this is his email to us. We need helps, but I had to convince my wife that this wasn't one of those services through the credit companies. We've watched a couple of videos on YouTube. And he talks about tax issues. We'll talk to you about your tax issues. My only income comes from VA disability check, a bit over $500. I got a retirement of $400, disability from a federal disability income of $800, and Social Security of $1,400. All of that's protected. And then the wife is getting $1,000 every 2 weeks, but she's retiring at the end of she retired at the end of November. And she'll be getting a pension, maybe Social Security. It'll be protected. Anyway, it looks like we ended up enrolling the guy. He doesn't have to worry. We always tell our clients, people, you can always call us no matter how often if you're worried. I tell people sometimes HELPS was founded so we can help, particularly the seniors that are worriers. It doesn't matter how many times you call. You don't get charged every time you call us. Call whenever you want. So this person contacts us, they say, I stopped paying. I'm going to plug my computer in there. I'm on my laptop. I don't want it to go dead on me. Here we go. Let me get this plugged in. There we go. I stopped paying 3 unsecured loans at the beginning of October, totaling $4,000 between all three. They're all local loans from around where I live. How long before they come knocking on my door? And can they touch my pension? Well, I don't know if they're going to knock on your door or not. In other words, how long before they sue? Someone serves you with legal papers? They may not. Can they touch my pension? No, like we've explained. Just got a few more minutes. And then tomorrow, we're 2 hours later tomorrow. Okay. But a lot of people watch these later. You don't have to watch them live. This is a comment from one of our paralegals. Says he's having tax problems. He's also a victim of a scam from several years ago. Publishing Housing Clearinghouse sweepstakes. Well, that's gone bankrupt now. There is no more Publishing Housing Clearing, but that was a lot of people use a sweepstakes as a way to scam people. They want him to pay the taxes so he would be tax free. So he sent them money, gave him access to his credit card, and it looks like he ended up paying him $40,000 on his credit card. Doesn't need to pay it. He made a big mistake. I think he feels real bad, but yeah, I always tell this to seniors: if you think you're being scammed, you can always call and talk to us, even if you're not a member of HELPS, and we'll talk to you. If someone asks you to send them money, like through Target, or send them get a debit card and give them the number off of it. You know, it very likely could be a scam. Okay, if you're involved with someone romantically and they start asking you for money, that's a clear sign that there's likely a scam going on. And those can be really nasty types of scams. Okay, person writes in or contact, one of my credit card debts sent me to court. I'm 30 days after receiving the notice. I got a summons and I need help to file bankruptcy. I'm retired. I don't have savings or a 401k. I'm single and my only property is my car. Probably don't need to file bankruptcy. I started helps because I did 30 or 40,000 bankruptcy. Seniors would come into me to file bankruptcy and explain you don't need to file. And why? Well, because your income is protected and your assets are protected. They're not going after your assets. The problem is I knew when they went home at night, the creditors were going to call them on the phone and continue to call them. So HELPS was founded so that we could represent seniors who didn't need to file bankruptcy, and a lot of them couldn't afford to file bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is not cheap. The minimum usually $2,000. Could be a lot more than that. So yeah, when you enroll in HELPS, we represent you so that debt collectors are going to leave you alone. You don't need to worry about them anymore. Okay. So let's see if we've got any more questions here. So it looks like we've spent an hour, end of the day. I think I've addressed all the questions. I hope I have. I'll double check here. Yep, I think so. So have a good day. If you have any comments, you can put them on the comment, and I'll address them there. I answer your questions there. You can press the like button, okay? Give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't, please subscribe to our channel. More people that look at these videos, subscribe to our channel, and make comments, the more Google spreads it around so people find out about HELPS. We just talk to people all day long that are grateful that they found us. So have a good day, and I will talk to you tomorrow. God bless. Bye.